This is Beyond Perception, where it's all about breaking out of limited perception and waking up to our human potential, our true self, and our connectedness with all life. I'm Simon Rilling, and today I have the joy to speak with Natalia Sierra Poveda. Born in Colombia, Natalia is an artist, activist, filmmaker, and social entrepreneur. In 2016, the life of her family and hers took a dramatic turn because of her family's human rights legal support to displaced families in Colombia. They were threatened by death, and they had to flee Colombia and seek asylum in Switzerland. After 4 years of an intense experience as asylum seekers in Switzerland, she and her family finally got recognized as political refugees this November. Natalia is currently doing her master's degree in art and society at the Zurich University of the Arts and is the founder of Power to the People, a social enterprise organizing city walks led by refugees. As an artist, she was commissioned by Art Basel to create the artwork My Last Treasure, about the strength of women forced to flee, exhibited in Swiss streets in Basel and Geneva. And Natalia is not only dedicated to making systemic changes in society and bringing justice towards marginalized people, but also to inspire people to live and fulfill their God-given destiny. Welcome to the show, Natalia.
What an honor, Simon. Thank you so much for making this format possible and accessible. I'm so glad to be here and speak with you.
Super cool. And of course, I'm very curious and I would love to talk about your, I imagine, incredibly challenging journey that led you from Colombia to where you are right now here in Switzerland. Also recognized as a political refugee. So formally, congratulations. And before we start talking about what you're doing right now, I would love to explore a little bit your journey and something which seems like a red line. It's an open question, is art and creative expression. What did compel you to study film in Colombia?
Thanks for your question, Simon. I was never the person who knew what I was going to be when I grew up. I was always liking many things and feeling like I wasn't good enough for maybe journalism or marketing. So I was always very hesitant. After I graduated from high school, I decided to be an au pair. So went to the United States, learned English, worked a lot, just trying to find my way. Came back to Colombia, and my plan was just to travel the world, go to Fiji, learn how to surf. And my mom was like, nope, you are not gonna do that. How you gonna pay for that? I'm not paying for that. And so she was like, go to a college and find something you want to study. And I had no idea. And my best friend, who knows me very well, and my brother told me, like, I don't know, we see you in film because you're like hyperactive and creative, and just go there. And I went to school, I signed up, ended up being an amazing career for me. I'm so thankful for that.
So it was love on first sight.
No, it was really random. I mean, it came randomly, but when I was there, indeed, it was like, wow, I love this. It implied a lot of writing, like being creative, storytelling, but also directing, which means you need to lead a crew, so you need like leadership, aptitudes and tools. It also required a lot of artistic creativity in the art design. You know, you need to design sets. What else? Film history, I love geography, traveling, producing. It was great. It was a great space for me to really develop a lot of things that would help me then in other constellations of life.
And I mean, the board, or also, you know, Brenda, that's how we met actually, because you're a friend of my wife, Brenda.
I love her so much.
And from what I know about you, that your mother was involved in human rights as a lawyer, and that also led you to produce, was it your first documentary or movie, a short film?
That's right. My mom was working towards human rights in Colombia. I was then studying in school, so every semester we had to do a lot of short films and documentaries. And a few months before that, I realized that what I liked to do was doing documentaries. simply because it didn't require a lot of preparation and actors and castings and finding the right location, but it was more like a spontaneous, intuitive format where I could just go to people. I would go to a lot of farmers living around Bogota, where I grew up in Colombia, and just talk to them and try to just bring the camera in a normal interaction and conversation. And so for my mom's work with the displaced families of the Colombian conflict, I just saw a lot of potential, right? These crazy stories and things people have gone through, and how we as Colombians are not aware. And when we're aware, we're so used to this news narrative and what we see in the news. And so I was like, but I'm experiencing something different. I'm talking to people and they just, they've been displaced from farms where generations have lived. And now they find themselves in the city, lost. And I was, just like a film student. And then I had a great crew of friends. And I was like, guys, why don't we take this as a semester project? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And everyone was very enthusiastic. And for a whole semester, together with friends and colleagues, we produced, wrote this documentary that it's called Sown in Cement, so Sembrados en Cemento, and trying to explain through the storytelling of a victim of the conflict, what was the position of the institutions, what was the position of the human rights activists, what was the position of the students. And so we had different interviews, and it was a great experience.
And was it your first experience with the situation of these people, or have you been aware of that before? Or was that something always dear to your heart to maybe support those people or help those people who possibly don't have anyone else looking after them?
I have to say that I'm very blessed, because my mom, as we were growing up and as my brother and I were raised, I felt like even though we had a lot of economical privileges, my mom, we were always in contact with people from very different backgrounds. Like we would host in our home small study Bible groups once a week with homeless people who would actually come without shoes, smelling very strongly, coming from the streets. We would invite them into our home once a week, cook for them. So I always had that contact with these people, and I was very aware of the injustices and the social differences and classes that were happening right next to me. With the displaced families, I've always had contact with people from the countryside through church, through my mom's work, through friends. So I knew very closely the situation, though when my mom started working only on that, expending all her energy and time for over, I think, 3 or 4 years, just towards these people, there was so much work to do. And she didn't have money to hire other people or lawyers. So my brother and I had to go to her office and just help her out doing the legal stuff, writing, interviewing people. And that was sort of a part-time job that never leaves you, because you go home and these stories just remain in your mind. And that's how the documentary idea came sort of naturally out of the work we were already doing with them and with my mom.
And can you tell us a little bit about what is the problem or what's going on? Because, I mean, probably most of the listeners, and me included, I live here in Switzerland. It's like basically everybody is really well, and there is a legal system, etc. So it's very hard to possibly understand or know what's going on. And when you talk about displaced families, what's the problem, or what were you dealing with?
Yes, Simon, great question. I'll try to make a very long story short. Colombia has been in civil war for 55 years or more. And part of this conflict is that we have a lot of countryside. We have a lot of beautiful mountains, a lot of plains, a lot of different outskirts, non-cosmopolitan areas in the country. And so many people live there. They are farmers, maybe they cultivate, I don't know, whatever, rice, tomatoes, depends on the region and the country. and they have a normal life day. Maybe they're not the richest people. Some of them have money, some not. And because of the war and the conflict that's happening between the government and the guerrillas or FARC or ELN or these groups, everyone wants the land of these people, either to cultivate cocaine or maybe to make it a base for certain activities like headquarters. It's very complicated and tricky. But what happens is, say, a family is living there. They've been all their lives farmers. They're just there. And then one night, someone comes, like an army comes with, like, I don't know, 20 people with guns and everything. And these people live in the jungle, like close to these areas. And they come and they're like, hey, we need your place. So you need to get out of here in the next 7 hours. I mean, and this is a nice scenario because in this threat, and it happens, there is a lot of crimes committed to these families. So there is rape, there is murder happening in front of their eyes. It's something very, very, very dark. And so most of these families, if they're not killed, they run away, but with no money. Maybe they manage to take, I don't know, a backpack and put some food or put some clothes, take their kids. Some of these kids are taken by the guerrillas to be like soldier kids. And so the families who manage to flee, some of them end up in Bogota, for instance. That was the people we met. They travel for hours, days, weeks, months, maybe. Arrived at Bogota, they receive no support from the government, neither sympathy from the people, because we're so sadly used to this. So if you go to Bogota, and it was always very, very sad and hard for me to see that I would live in a nice building, and right outside my building, there'll be a family of displaced people with babies in their arms, just begging for money or for food. You've probably seen that in Mexico, maybe. And so that's the reality of Colombia. These families usually don't receive any support from the government, nor recognition that they're victims. And there are a lot of institutions and organizations working towards giving these people recognition, but it's a long life process. It's not happening. There's so many victims. Millions of people have been displaced in Colombia. And so what my mom and her colleague, another lawyer who's also in Switzerland and came with us, were doing is they found there was a law, there was a decree, something like that, where they could actually, sort of sue the government, sue the army, sue the police, sue the guerrilla, like sue a lot of institutions for not providing security for these displaced families. And that was a long, like it was maybe a 3 or 4 year long work of research, of finding these people, making these people trust you to give you, their identity card, to tell the story, to then have this big file that you would go to court and bring and say, okay, government, look, this had happened to these people. Maybe some families were displaced 2 weeks before we met them, others 20 years before, other 15 years before. And so we would tell the story of this family and said, now government, the least you can do is give them money, give them a house, recognize and accept that they've been going through these, give them a space to work, to study. And that's what got us into travel. And that was a tricky part of the work we were doing, sadly.
And that wasn't also the reason that you decided to leave Colombia?
Yes. Because of this work, we were persecuted, threatened, chased after. Yes.
Is that something you can or want to talk about, or is that...
I think, let's see. Let's ask me questions, and if I feel I'm uncomfortable talking about it, then I will let you know. But thanks for asking. Also, it's important that people get the context. That's why I understand it's important to give the context.
Yeah, I mean, what of course makes me curious to know about more about the situation, and also like how possibly being put under pressure to come to the conclusion with, like, I cannot stay in my country anymore and fight for like what I see or what I perceive as right or against wrong, but like what made you, from my understanding, there must have been quite extreme situations or experiences to make you come to the conclusion, I cannot stay here any longer. And if that's something you feel comfortable to share a bit more, what actually happened or how that, like, I assume that you were fighting against powerful people and institutions and like on behalf of people who had no support or nobody really cared about. So like, to understand a bit what possibly was going on.
Sure. Yeah, I won't go too much into details, but I can share. From them, I mean, as I told you, it was maybe 4 years working with these, and I guess at first my mom and her colleague were not aware of how dangerous, how tricky this was. Then with time, we started noticing that people were chasing us, people were taking pictures of us in the streets, we were getting calls. Then a few months later, we got some not so nice visits from people that were always like pressuring us, like, stop what you're doing, stop the work that you're doing. And I guess my mom, she was like, no, but at the same time, I guess, of course, she was driven by her passion of justice. I do think that we weren't really not aware. Somehow we were blind by our hunger for justice, that we couldn't see how serious these threats and chasing was. And so we were starting to moving from houses, because, you see people just parking outside your place and looking at your window, and you're like, okay, this is not normal. So we would move to houses, we would change our telephone's number. I would have to go to the States for a month or two to just like distract these people. I don't know, it was weird. It was like living a life of paranoia, but you're so busy with the work you're doing that it becomes natural, which is really dangerous when you naturalize such things. And so it got worse and worse. Thank God none of us were ever hurt. We were not hurt, but of course mentally it was really traumatizing in many ways. And so summer 2016, something happened, an event happened. We got a visit that was not nice, with guns and so on. And that was when my mom was like, okay, this is serious. What shall we do now? And it was something so sudden. I tell you, like, I don't even remember what happened from that moment till the moment we came. It was a period of maybe 2 or 3 months in which we decided to come to Switzerland. We didn't know anyone in Switzerland. My mom had been here maybe 4 years or maybe 5 years before we came, just like traveling, but we knew no one. We just knew that Switzerland was supporting human rights, and there was a Geneva Convention signed in 1953 that supports refugees, but really no idea. And we're like, okay, we're gonna go. So just like in 3 months, preparing our lives, selling what we could, mostly just giving away everything, trying to organize paperwork. Most importantly, my mom didn't want to leave her work behind. So there was a lot of paperwork that needed to be done for her to be outside the country and still the legal procedures to continue. And so we came.
Wow. Yeah, I have no clue how difficult that must have been, and how was it to arrive here in Switzerland? Did you had any expectations? Like, how did you imagine Switzerland?
I try to remember, what did I think of Switzerland before I came? I really knew nothing. Like, I had no clue. I just remember once looking, because we didn't have time to like Google it. I was so busy with so much. I don't remember having the time to just sit down and like read about Switzerland. No idea. I remember just having this image of a picture of Bern, just like this blue river and those buildings. But though I never met a Swiss person, I've been to Europe before, not to Switzerland. I knew they spoke German. It was very back. Like, I didn't know. Also, it was just so, like, imagine, just like, I was at my last semester of university when we came. I had to, like, I couldn't finish my university. from Colombia. I had to finish here. So I also had classes. There was just so much going on. Yes, and how was when we came to Switzerland? I mean, I really think the way, how you're experiencing and what you're thinking and how you see things, it's like the lenses you use to see this country. And I was just so confused and lost that I was just like, what is this? I didn't find it nice or bad or good or bad. It was just like, what's going on? Just like, what is this? It's something very strange. I haven't experienced anywhere, any other time in my life.
It was you, your mother, and your brother, and you said also a colleague of your mother.
So the colleague of my mother, he came 5 months before us. But I guess maybe my mom and him, maybe he told my mom how the procedure could have been a little bit, but my mom didn't tell us any of that. And then I came with my mother, my brother, his wife. That was it.
And then basically just what you were able to carry, like all your things, like being left there in Colombia, or like what you said, sold, and just having some bags with you, like what you could carry here.
Literally, like as just 2 bags each. 2 bags each.
And was it a feeling of relief? Now I don't need to worry anymore, or was it more like, what is this going to be? And like I'm leaving everything behind.
A mix of everything. A mix of everything. I feel like I was just a ticking bomb inside of me because there was so much. I mean, you're leaving behind, like, for instance, my dad, my grandma, my cousins, my family, my friends, my boyfriend at the time, my school, the city I grew up in, my house, all these things. Also, the material stuff that were also very important to me, my journals, my diaries, things I've collected all my life, photo albums. So it was like that feeling of loss, plus the feeling of a little bit of excitement and adventure. I have to confess, I was really excited. Like, what is it gonna be like? Like, what's gonna happen? I was expectant. Also, I was like relief. Like, to be honest, I didn't have the time to feel things and to like think, oh wow, this means that I'll be safe. I mean, I knew, okay, this means that I won't be chased or looked after, or some guy will come in the middle of the night and do something to me. For sure, that was the feeling of how would that be, because I've never felt that in my life, ever. I've always felt something was going to happen. And so it was the expectancy of how will that be. Yes.
Then you came to Switzerland, and I mean, from the conversations we had, I know a bit of your experience, but like, was it adventurous then, the life as an asylum seeker? How was it arriving here, and how was your life for the last years as an asylum seeker? Like, how can one imagine being in that situation?
I like to use this picture to explain people a bit. Imagine you're sleeping and suddenly you have the worst nightmare of your life, that you're being chased, someone's gonna catch you, and then you wake up. But when you wake up, you're in a complete different reality, something so alien to you that you feel like if you were sent, like literally, I was on a Monday, I was in Colombia having my life. Yes, we were threatened. Yes, there was a lot of paranoia, but still it was my safe place somehow, in a sick way. Mm-hmm. And then Wednesday, I'm at Zurich airport, and these police guards send me to Kreuzlingen, which is a border city from Germany and Switzerland. And I'm on this train with my family, just arriving at this building that looks like a prison, pretty much. I entered this building and it's packed with the people I would have seen in the news, like that were refugees, like from Syria or Afghanistan or Eritrea. Like, these people were there. And you're just like in this jail-like building with secure people all around you, checking everything, like like checking your stuff, like taking your bags, opening, checking every little thing you've brought, checking your body, like, you know how to say that when they do, like, you go on airports and they touch your body to see if you have something hidden. It was the most bizarre reality constellation. I've never imagined that in my wildest dreams, and it was really difficult. It was really like, what is going on? Who, like, what am I doing? How did I end up here? Like, I don't belong. Just take me out. Just end the nightmare. This is not my life. Stop. And it doesn't stop. And we were at this shelter for, I think, 4 weeks. And I tell you, Simone, it's the worst I've experienced in my life. It's the worst. It's just really, I don't have words. It's just so bad. It's just so bad. It's just really bad. Yeah. Wow.
Like from what I get, it's a shelter, and then there are like plenty of people in the same situation, and there's no possibility to leave that building or that place then, like, as long as you're like still being checked and verified, or
Okay, yes. So how it works is, it's this building that looks like a prison. It has like a patio. Inside it has a big wall, it has some offices, and it has a lot of rooms. It has a big room to have lunch, like a dinner corridor, cafeteria sort of. And so you get there and you're like, hi, I'm looking for asylum. And they're like, okay, yes, next, because everyone just comes there to look for asylum. And they check you, check your stuff, get your papers, assign you a room. So women sleep on one side of the building, men sleep on the other side. The rooms have probably 6 bunk beds. So it's about 12 women sleeping in the same room. There are these lockers that you would see in high school films, like this is a little locker to put your stuff. Of course, nothing fits there, so the room is just packed with bags. There is the patio, and you just arrive there, and they're like, okay, this is your bed here, and in the next days you'll be called to one of these offices to give an interview about your case, but like in the next 2 or 3 days. In the meantime, you're allowed to go out, I think it was from 9 to 11 and from 2 to 5 p.m. And we're like, what? Like, also the toilets, oh my God. I tell you, I was really like, when I went to the toilet for the first time, I had like suicidal thoughts. It's so weird. I've never in my life wanted to like not be in my body, but just you go there and it smells disgusting. It's like there are no doors. It's so weird. Like everyone sees everything. It smells like hell. I was like, what am I doing here? Like, this is just a nightmare. Like, pinch me, get me out of here, get me out of here. Yeah, I was shocked. Plus, you're leaving that, and I was with my mom, with my brother, with my sister-in-law, seeing their faces of confusion. Everything adds up to like, and you look at each other like, is this really happening? Like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And so super confusing. And yeah, the rules of this place are, you can go out, but going out is like you make a 45-minute line because everyone wants to go out. Just go outside to the city during the day, and you make this line. They again like check your body that you're not taking everything out. We would go out, and it was a bit in the outskirts. This is a small town, right? Right at the border with Germany. So really weird. There was like this borderline, like when you're crossing borders in Europe, and I was like, what is this? It felt so strange to me. And so we obviously couldn't go to Germany, and they always tell you like, you are not allowed to cross the border. And I remember just going out with my family, just walking through the city. It's a very peaceful, quiet town, a lot of like green areas and the lake, the Bodensee, which is a beautiful lake. It was really bizarre because every day, or the first days when I went out, was like I could blend in somehow with the people. No one would realize that I was a refugee just because maybe I'm Latino. I don't know. I was wearing Western clothes. I didn't stick out.
Mhm.
So it was this weird mind game, like, okay, no one is looking at me, like you can just walk through and not being looked at. And my mom and I would just go to the lake and, you know, put our bikinis and just like tan, because it was summer. And the worst moment was like when you see people gathering, all the people that left the shelter with you, like you recognize them obviously, and at some point in the afternoon you see that everyone is just getting their stuff ready, and you're like, oh no, it's time to go back. That was the worst. That was like, why can't I just stay outside for 2 more hours? It's sunny, there is a festival, just taking the sun, trying to just clear my mind. Why do I have to go back there? Like, I don't want to go back there. Don't take me there. But then everyone starts just gathering their things and you just follow. It's so funny. Like this group of like 50 people, you know, just walking through the city all together at the same time. It's just really bizarre. And then you enter this place, and entering for me was like going back to hell. Like, okay, this is my reality. Very, very, very bad.
Wow, yeah, and so from what I understand, there was not really a private sphere. You've been together with people from all kind of backgrounds, and what I also would assume, probably like quite a bit of a journey, everybody themselves. And was it like, did you know that you will get asylum granted in Switzerland because of your situation, or was that an unknown too?
That was unknown from day one. And after 3 days there, when they did this first interview, just a 2-hour interview, they take your passport, they take your documents, they take my hard drive, my computer, all these things. They're like, okay, we gathered that you can apply for it. Like, okay, now you enter the process of being an asylum seeker, which means from now on, you'll be placed somewhere in Switzerland after this shelter. We don't know where, we don't decide. We'll send you somewhere, and then you just have to wait that one day a letter comes inviting you to a second interview. And we're like, okay, when? They're like, we don't know. Like, and you imagine maybe, okay, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. Well, it's been 4 years and 3 months. We had no idea. And yes, that's the asylum seeker. At least it was in Switzerland until last November, because now they're trying to do everything in 4 or 5 months or even less. But for us, it was like, okay, now you're an asylum seeker. Here's your document that you need to renew every 6 months. And yeah, that was pretty much it. So it was unknown from the start.
Okay, but you've been in the situation where you didn't know like how long it would like take you to be in this situation, and from what I also understand, you had to give your passports, your identity cards, and you were not allowed to travel like cross the border or go somewhere else. And how like how did you make sense, or like purpose, or is that even a word you like which you like had, or was it completely purposeless, or was it just like, okay, like one day we will get that status and then it will be fine, or like how did you manage to go through that situation? And
Yes, the only explanation I found, and I found at the moment, was I've always knew that my life and my purpose and my destiny was not being decided by any government, any institution, nor my parents, nor my partner, if I've ever had one, nor even me. But I've always grew with the deep, deep belief that God was in charge of my life. And so even when my mom told me that we were going to Switzerland, and she asked me, do you want to come? She never forced us, she asked us. That moment, it seemed like so bizarre, as I shared already, but deep inside of me, I knew like this is part of the plan. I knew there was that's why I was excited in a way. I was like, okay, God, if you want to take me there, I told him like, I don't know, it's so unknown to me, but I know you have the best plans for me, and I fully trust you, so let's do it. And I told my mom like, yes. And she's like, what, really? I was like, yes, that's it. So going through all of that, and just that what I shared now was just the first 4 weeks. So in 4 years, a lot more, even worse than that had happened. I've always known, and I can say this with so much security, that I knew there was a purpose with everything. Even when I didn't see it. Most of the times I didn't see it. I was like, why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to hear these people's stories? Why do these people have to go through these? All these other refugees that really go through things way harder than what I've been through. But I knew, okay, God, I don't see it. I don't know how it will look like. Just help me get through today. Just give me whatever strength I need today. Just give me the kindness I need today, not to scream at my mom when she just like pokes me or something, because I was just so angry all the time. And I guess it was a process of day by day, and with time seeing, okay, there is purpose, there is inspiration. If I can do this, there are needs. We can change some stuff in the shelters. That I would find these clues and these hints. And I think that's what gets me through it, because now in the process of like accepting now like what had happened and find forgiveness and not just feel myself with anger, it's also important to know that if I went through that, there is a meaning, there is a purpose. I see it now, and so I cannot look back and be angry or frustrated or blame people.
And if you mention purpose, what's your purpose now? Like, what purpose did you find, or like, how did you see the good in the situation, or what did you do then?
Purpose is an interesting word. I feel like, at least I grew up Christian, and in the sphere of the people, and what it's usually thought is like, oh, you need to find your calling. Like either God will tell you you're a pastor, or you're a painter, or you're an artist, or you're that. And I struggled a lot with that, because as I told you, I never knew it felt like the profession or the career was going to be your purpose. And what I'm realizing with time is that, from my perspective, we are all designed and made with a very specific calling that God wants us to fulfill in this earth. But before that, we are all called to bring love and to bring light and to bring hope, no matter what hardship you're going through, no matter what joy you're going through. That's the main purpose I feel everyone has. That's it. So I try to stick to that. And now how I see that my life is developing because of the places I've been to, the experiences I've gone through, and what God has like placed me, where he has placed me, then I would say my calling or my mission, so to say, my more specific mission on this earth, I think, is to bring justice, is to bring strength, is to share my experiences for other people to see, okay, it is possible. And just to find the greatness and the amazing potential that God has put in each one of us. And I feel that's the direction God's taking me. But yeah, and it's also, maybe I do films to show that, right? Maybe the format, it's films, or it's city walks, or it's speaking to you right now, which is absolutely wonderful and such a privilege and an honor for me. No matter what scenario, what context I'm doing it, I think the main thing is to bring justice, to bring awareness, to bring love, to bring hope, to bring inspiration. Yes.
That's beautiful. And was that something which was always part of you, or you approaching life, or was that especially something which you experience like from those weeks, for example, and the maybe spending time with other refugees and being in a challenging situation, or over the last 2 years, was a realization as a result of that, or something which was normal to you always?
I love your questions. They're amazing. I've always known that God is love. And I've always known that through Jesus Christ, I find all the strength, all the faith. I've also been through a lot of hardships in my childhood. Growing up without my dad brought a lot of frustration and anger in me. But something that has always been part of me is like, going to God and going to Christ and being like, show me the way, give me strength, support me, give me your love, receiving it. I've always had that, though arriving to Zurich airport, not before, say, rewind before to like being chased, looked after, persecuted, was something I didn't experience before. It was like a new situation, life for me. And so in that situation, I could also experience my faith, like my faith was put at test, or because it was something new. And so it's been such a beautiful experience, because every hardship, every new hardship has helped me test my faith and see like, okay, where do I stand now, where it looks like God has completely forgotten me, or is like punishing me, or what the hell is going on. So it's been so beautiful to see, where do I stand now? And every time I ask the question, I always see God's light and purpose so clear coming to me in so many different ways. And I'm like, okay, I'm meant to go through this. We are all meant to endure everything that lives throw at us. If we're positioned in that, this is gonna help other people, this is gonna support other people, this is gonna bring light to other people, and then that seeing that light at the end of the tunnel gets you through, I believe, or it has gotten me through all these bizarre experiences.
Thank you very much for sharing. And just out of curiosity, so you spent a couple of weeks in this large camp or shelter, and then you went to a different location to then like living together just with your family, or was it like to a bit more to like normal in environment, or what was your journey like?
So after 4 weeks there, we got a letter that said, okay, the Canton Zurich will take you. We had no idea. I mean, we arrived at the airport and it was like, okay. And so they gave us an address and some train tickets, and we just took like, I don't know, 3 hours to find this place, completely lost. And then we find that it's a suburb, maybe 15 minutes outside of Zurich. And this place it's what it's called a Durchgangszentrum. So a temporary passage shelter. I mean, it didn't have security people, which was the first impression we got. We're like, okay, there are no guards. This is good. This is a good sign. This is great. It was like a building in a small town next to some residential buildings, and maybe there lived around 80 people. There were small apartments. For instance, my brother and his wife, they were placing a one-room little apartment there, like a very old building. Like you could see, like really old, like really for poor people. Like I've never met a Swiss person who would live there. Something like very old, very rusty, but working somehow. So they had their own little room. It was like a 5-floor building. And then my mom and I were placed in a room with other 3 women in this little apartment that had other 2 tiny rooms and a tiny kitchen. And everything was connected by halls. So you could see, like, it was an open, from inside was open, and there was a small patio at the outdoors with like a volleyball field and a ping pong table. It was nice compared to the other one. It felt, I remember our impression we're getting there was like, okay, it feels like it's a normal neighborhood. There are like people living next to it. It was more like family-like, but not really. And we stayed there for 6 months. And then from there, it meant that we were taken by Canton Zurich, and that our application was going to be evaluated by Canton Zurich. Well, by Bern, the capital, the migration department, but that our everyday life would be taken care of the Canton of Zurich. And then after 6 months there, you're waiting every day, right? And you don't know how long you're gonna stay there. You know that it's not forever because it's a passage centrum, but you really don't know. And one day they send you a letter in the night, and they tell you the address for your next location. And they don't tell you before, because they say, if we tell you before, you might go to the place and you see the building and you don't like it, so then you refuse to go there. And we're like, Yes, I would probably do that.
That's smart.
You're like, okay, makes sense, but it's kind of weird. And so 6 months after, that was February 2017, my mom and I got a letter, and they're like, okay, you're gonna be transferred to the city of Zurich. You're like, okay, sounds good, but where is this place? Who knows? And then my brother and his wife, like, oh, you're gonna be transferred to this tiny village, to like Bet am Irgel. And then we look at the map, and it was really super far. It's a tiny village, and my mom and I to the city of Zurich. And then we were transferred to another terrible place. Oh my gosh. It's called Halle Neun. I think when I met Brenda, actually, when I met you guys, I was living there. No, I was living in this small town in Folketsville. But then when I met Brenda, I was in Zurich already. And that place, it's terrible as well. They shut it down, thank God. But it was a big hall, like a exhibition hall. So this big open space with wooden rooms. It's hard to just wooden rooms, like boxes, but big boxes where people could enter, and tiny kitchens just shared in the hallways. And then in this room, my mom and I slept with 2 other women, and we stayed there for I think 9 months, and that was also traumatizing.
And was there a sense of camaraderie among the refugees? Was it mutual support and like a big family, or was it more like, oh, like leave me alone? Like, how can one imagine the situation there? I know that we have quite a bit of refugees. I think something like 60 or like even more thousand in Switzerland. But one of the things which I also witnessed personally, Brenda, my wife and I, we became friends maybe around 2-3 years ago with also Eritrean refugees, and that was so opening perceptions again, because I admit, no, like my it was like discovering an alternative reality, a different world within the same country. And like before, I really had no interest, no clue, no real interaction to have a chance to understand the situation. But I also had, I admit, judgments or preconceptions about them coming here, maybe being lazy or living from our money and maybe even exploiting the system. And then we met like these young gentlemen, and they were really gentle, so open-hearted, like very curious, and also personal tough story. But then also on that, they felt also very lonely, insecure, and isolated without really interaction with anyone else than maybe the refugees. And that also was kind of this realization of like our different perceptions or prejudices. No, like probably they thought like the Swiss people here, they're all unfriendly, nobody supports them. They felt very disempowered, and also not recognizing all the amazing opportunities you like still could have if you knew about them or if you felt empowered. And that was something really eye-opening for myself. And did you, as being a refugee, did you experience prejudices towards you, or people like, oh, like a refugee or so, like a bit of a stigma or so?
Absolutely. To answer your last question, absolutely. There is a lot of preconceptions, a lot of prejudices, a lot of stigmatization, re-victimization, patronizing. There is that towards refugees all the time. And I encounter that every day, even if just meeting friends from whatever, and I tell them I'm a refugee, they're like, you don't look like a refugee, you know? And I'm not blaming anyone. I mean, I was probably like that before. And of course there's and again I have such a privileged position because because the way I look, unfortunately I'm never going to be asked for papers. There's probably never going to be face profiling with me, some police coming, but most of these people really have to encounter that day by day of people looking to them under the shoulder and asking questions. And they really encounter tough things that I have not encountered, but I'm aware of. You asked before, how was you ask about like if there's solidarity, is it like a big family? And I think it's what happens there. It's something that we don't know. I couldn't say it's like a big family. There are no words to explain that because it's such a context. It's like a micro world that happens that you cannot compare in being with, I don't know, living in a boarding school, or like going with a group of friends to do a volunteer work in Somalia. It's nothing like it. It's something new. I will share an anecdote that really just shaped my life fully, because I think it might explain a little bit what happens there. When we were in this first shelter in Kurtzlingen, say we arrived on a Wednesday, and so on Friday night we left out to go outside and walk a little bit, and then it was 5, so we had to go back, and it was Friday. And so we went back, my mom and I, and then it's 5, and I'm looking for my brother, I'm looking for Laura, my sister-in-law, and I'm like, where are they? Mom, they're not in. What happened? No, they're out. They won't come in. I was just freaking out. And then I asked one of the guards, what happens if someone doesn't come back on a Friday? And they're like, well, they have to spend the night there and then come back tomorrow. Like, I was like, what? Is that a possibility? Like, I could just sleep at the train station then. Why didn't you tell me before? But I was like so confused. And maybe 10, 20, 15 minutes later, I was like, okay, they're not coming back. They're not here. It was a Friday, and there was a summer fest in the city. We were in. So my mom is like, don't worry. They just stayed out. They're asleep at a park. They're probably just going for drinks or something. And I was like, I want that. Like, and so I had a breakdown. I've never had such an anxiety, maybe a panic attack. I don't know what happened to me, but I went nuts. And I was like, oh my God, I need to go out. I need to go with them. I want to go. I want to listen to music. I want to have a beer. I need to get out of here. And so I ran to the door, and I'm like shaking the security guards. I'm out of my body. I'm just nuts. And I'm like, let me out. And they're like, no. And I'm like, yes, my brother is out. I'm going to sleep at the train station. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Just let me out. And they're like, no, it's 5. You cannot go out. And these guys are like huge and they have guns. So I was like, okay, maybe a bit intimidating. And then I look at my mom and her face. My God, she was like so sad. Like, she was so sad. It was so terrible to just see her face. So I couldn't look at her in the midst of my craziness. I go to my room to just like I don't know, I didn't know where to go, and it's packed with women because it's their room, and I'm like, I just need to be alone, right? And so I go down the stairs just running, and I find I don't have a place to go. I don't know if you've never experienced that, but it's like being in an escape room or something like that. I felt like I need to escape, I need to cry, I need to run. Where do I go? And so I ran to the patio, and I'm in tears, just like desperately crying. And until then, in the 3 days I have been in this shelter, I was super kind. I was playing with every kid. I was just like hugging people, being like, super kind. So people start seeing me like this, and they're like, oh my God, this woman, she turned crazy. And so I go to the patio, and I find just like a corner, like a space where there were no one. But this patio is always filled with people. It's where everyone is taking the sun, smoking. And I just started crying my soul out. And I cry, and everyone starts coming to me. And I'm like, leave me alone. Like, I'm literally telling people, get the fuck out of here. Just don't talk to me. And my mom is like telling everyone, don't talk to her. Just leave her. Just leave her. And all these beautiful people, these amazing, wonderful souls, they come to me. And they're like, no one speaks German, they don't speak English, I don't speak Farsi, Arabic, whatever. And so they start talking to me in different languages, trying to hug me, holding my hand. And I'm like, guys, I don't want to be mean, but just leave me alone. And then the kids come and start hugging me, and I'm like just pulling everyone away. And this guy who I've never seen moved, it was like this old guy, like a Buddha kind of image. He was always sitting at the same spot. He has these crazy green, blue eyes, like crazy person. He was always sitting there, quiet. He always looks so sad. And he gets up and I see him walking towards me, and I'm like, oh my God, like, why is he coming? This is so scary. And he looks at me right in the eye, Simone. I've never had anyone looking at me like through my soul. And he tells me, if you cry, we cry. And I'm like, what? And so I there I realized, like, I'm affecting everyone. Like, what I'm feeling, everyone is feeling it, and everyone is just containing themselves day by day, and they try to put a good face to it, and they try to come and laugh and listen to music and dance and smile. And now when someone like me, who's like a spoiled kid, just breaks out, then they all break out. And I was like, wow, this is like super wise from you, thank you, amazing, I get it. But still, there's a monster in me, I need to get out now. Because, and I just look at him and I'm like, I just ran away. And I go down the stairs, and I go to the showers, and these showers are shared. There was really not a moment for us to be alone. And I just go to the showers, and I'm like, okay, no one's here. And I start just crying and crying and crying. And then my mom comes, and just I feel the worst person in the world, because she looks so sad. And I'm like, why am I making her feel so sad? But I can't help it, this is so bad. And I scream at her and yelled, I'm like, out. And then some girls from my room come, and again, they're trying to soothe me. And I'm just like, out, out. And that was my night. I spent like 8 hours just crying in this room, just crying. And so it was a very powerful moment. And I think it's a way to explain this super strange constellation. I hope I could give you the feeling of community and support and containment and anger, but love, and just these people are just so brave. Like, they're just so brave. I've never seen any of them breaking out, crying. I was only me. And then after that, I was like, okay, this is never gonna happen again. I just have to keep it to myself.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. What can I say? Thank you. What always stuck out to me is that you were always joyful. You always seemed very grateful, and to be focused on the positive. And when I shared before that we became friends with Eritrean refugees, which seemed kind of very isolated and not really having someone reaching the hand out to them, but also having their perception of maybe not, like, nobody really looking at them.
Mm-hmm.
And you seem to me as someone who is bridging the kind of the two perceptions. On the one side, like maybe where I was before, or you could say the general population not really having an interest, or like maybe also having a bit of judgments or preconceptions towards refugees.
Mm-hmm.
But then maybe on the other hand, also the refugees having possibly, I don't know, and I'm curious to hear, maybe judgments towards like, nobody, like, they don't want us to be here, and that's why I, like, okay, whatever, nobody wants me, I isolate. And on the other hand, also, like, with what I had tried with the friends we had, to encourage them to also look, hey, there are some cool opportunities here. You can learn, you can educate yourself, and there are a lot of things, but you have to take the initiative. And I see you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but someone like who's in the middle, who bridges the two different perceptions. And does that make sense, or is it like...
It makes so much sense, Simone. If you ask me again about the calling and the purpose, I think for this period of my life, it's been that. It's been, as you said, you said it perfectly. It's been like bridging, and through this, to this bridge, bringing awareness, because I'm like somehow can have had experiences from both sides. Absolutely. There's so many, as you were saying, so many prejudice towards these people, like towards refugees, like, oh, they don't want to work, oh, they just want to take the money from the States, oh, but look, I'm giving them so many opportunities opportunities. Go learn German, but look, go for boxing, free courses, or go do that and do that. And even myself, I have to confess that at first I was that person. I was living in the shelters, and I would find opportunities to just distract myself, free things to do, swimming pools, parks, a lot of activities. I was always trying to drag people with me to be like, hey, look, there are these chances. And then finally, and thank God, I could actually understand that what you're going through is not like, okay, I'm gonna go and travel to Afghanistan for you. I'm just gonna go and live in another country, and so I need to make my new life, and it's fine. And then I look for free stuff, as I would have done in another moment of my life. But when you're a refugee, your mind, like what you're going through, it's crazy. There's no explanation for that. Even someone can come and tell you, I'm going to give you money if you go and exercise with this free group of volunteers, and I'm gonna give you the passport. Inside of you, you're so conflicted. You don't know where you are. It's so unknown. It might sound great, but there's so many fears. The culture you come from, the traditions you have, maybe engaging with some strangers and going for jogging, it's something that you've never done and you would never do, because in your culture you don't do that. And the paradigmas
Mhm.
I had to break with, even me being a refugee. And this has been the greatest thing I finally could see clearly, is that we can never think that the way we see, or Swiss people or locals, the opportunities and the world can be transferred directly one-to-one to the refugee, the person forced to flee. It's absurd, it's unrealistic. It's just, when you're a refugee, first it's not by choice that you're here as any other migrant. It's not like, oh, I came here because I married someone, okay, I'm here. Oh, I'm a student. Your mind is different, your attitude is different. And when you're a refugee, not just because you're traumatized, you surely are, but most like there is this uncertainty. What's gonna happen with my life? And that sometimes can consume you so much that even going for a walk or seeing an opportunity or going for a dinner at a church with volunteers seem like you don't even consider it, because your mind is so busy trying to figure out and make sense of life. And that's something I had to learn the hard way, because yes, I have an initiative, yes, I'm strong, I mean, I can't deny it, and that it's really thanks to God. But I see that with close people very close to my heart, who are going through the same processes, it's not that they have the same, it's not that the ways of coping with the reality are the same as mine. Mine's were to distract myself and do things which turned out into great projects and amazing, lucky me. Other people cope with the reality in different ways, isolating themselves. And also, very important to say, as you were saying with your friends from Eritrea, and I remember when you and Brenda met them, it was so amazing. I was like, this is great what you guys are doing, and you were so kind to them, and that really will always stick with me. What happens is also the system. It's not just the refugee in his or her mind that it's this world and it's traumatized and it's overwhelmed. No. The system itself, at least in Switzerland, it's isolating you from everything else. The locations where the shelters are in industrial districts, or in the middle of the Swiss Alps, in a village where my brother lived, for instance, with only 200 Swiss people who've never seen foreigners, or don't like foreigners. So there are these two parts that just crush you and make you feel isolated, make you feel unwelcome. From day one, you are unwelcomed. The way this shelter, this prison shelter is designed, makes you feel like we don't want you here. If you have security people, Securitas 24/7 guarding you and seeing you, watching you eat, watching you go to the toilet, of course you feel unwelcome. Of course you're like, okay, these people don't want me here. Now what's going to happen with my life? I've been through so much. I left my family, I lost my family, now I'm here. There's just this crazy constellation going on.
So there's probably a bit of a disencouragement to claim your refugee status here. And And would you say that also, I mean, with what you just said before, that the brain in general is more in survival mode, and therefore just by design of the situation, not like cannot benefit or is not interested in like other other like stuff or like things to do, like before you really have figured out how you survive? Or and would you say that would be something which those people might need to, like, even a form of therapy or something, like to cope with the situation and transcend this like very reactive possibly situation? I don't know if that makes sense, the question, but
Yes, it does, and I have to make some clarifications. It doesn't mean that if someone comes and invite someone to go boxing with a group of volunteers, then every refugee is traumatized and would say no. Absolutely no. On the contrary, I know many organizations of architects, boxing, even you and Brenda, I think we're doing sports or something, or even inviting, like this is great, inviting someone into your home does make a difference. It's just when people come and tell me, oh, refugees are disinterested, then I have to explain the prior that I have just said. But again, seeing a Swiss person or a local or whoever coming and tell you, would you like to come for dinner to my house? That is what you were saying. That breaks your perception of the reality you're living in, and you're like, what? Like, are you not afraid of me? Like, in your mind, like, would you really like me to eat with you? Like these things came to my mind unconsciously. Like, okay, this person accepts me. Okay, maybe no one hates me really. Maybe I'm not so unwelcome. So it does make the difference when people give the hand to you. But it's very important that when you offer something, you don't expect that these people would do exactly what you want. But you need to have this attitude of like, I offer this to you. If you take it, it's great. I hope it helps you. But if it doesn't, I absolutely accept it. And I'm not going to say, oh, but once I gave a refugee, I don't know, a free course on something and this person didn't do it. It's just different. Where was I going with that? What was your last question? Sorry, I talk a lot.
I also don't remember, but what I'm curious about, because but is that also the idea behind your project, Power to the People?
Mm-hmm.
To build bridges, or can you explain what it is and why you started it?
Yes. Power to the People is a social enterprise in which refugees guide city walks in Zurich to locals, Swiss people, tourists, and other refugees as well.
And that was one of the motivations behind to like connect refugees with people living in Switzerland and not in that situation, to like connect them, or what is the idea behind?
As you were saying, it was this position I grew in naturally, organically, of being this bridge, sort of. I think it grew up, the idea came from that, from different prototypes and experiments, not that I did intentionally to get to a project, but just in my everyday life, with living with refugees and asylum seekers, seeing how they would interact with public space. How did I interact with the neighborhood I was living in? For instance, I would go to the library, I would explore, I would go to the swimming pool, I would go there, but then other people would go maybe just to the park, other people would go to McDonald's, other people. And so I became fascinated with this public space. Because the shelter, I never wanted to be in any of these shelters. I was like, that's hell. I try to be out as much as I can and just go there to sleep. And so it was like this idea of the city, exploring Zurich, trying to figure out who goes there, why, how do I feel in this place. But if I feel comfortable going to the swimming pool, it proved me wrong. That didn't mean that every woman in the shelter would feel as comfortable as I felt in the shelter. And I was like, this is great. I love going out to the city. I love exploring. I feel like I can make sense of the city when I just take my own roads. And I think 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I started taking a lot of pictures of Zurich, of places that connected me somehow with Colombia or with memories, or that brought me peace. And this became a series of 25 postcards of Zurich, greetings of Zurich. And I had an exhibition, and in this exhibition, Swiss people and locals were telling me like, oh, I've never seen this place. Where is this? I was like, oh, this is behind the cemetery on this neighborhood. Oh, this is the tiny street when you go to the art museum underneath. And they're like, oh, wow, you seem to know like really cool places. And so organically, this idea came to mind that it was a tool. It served me as a tool to go out, engage with the city, make it mine, have a topic to talk about with other people, that it was not necessarily my refugee life. Also seeing that us as outsiders had a completely different point of view and perception of the city. And this applies to everyone else. If you go to Bogota, you probably see things that I've never noticed. And I was like, okay, this is great. And then I started doing certain workshops and connecting with different organizations, just doing like volunteer work and seeing how every refugee and asylum seeker had such a great and amazing view on places and cities. And so the idea came together, but it was a really long process. And I think for the past 2 years now, wow, crazy, or 1 year and a half, it clicked, like, okay, the project has to be the refugee guides the others to the city, and this is not taking you to landmarks, but the stops are based on the experience of this refugee person. In my case, for instance, the street art. Then I would take you, I connect to street art, and so I would take you and your friends to see different spots on the city, but on each spot I will share why is this space important to me. And so you will get a different perception, and it's mostly a space for dialogue. I think city tours is the excuse, but what I really want and strive for is to talk, for us to share whatever you want to share, not forcing anyone to share their personal experiences as refugees, but just to know that that's such a great potential in every human being, not just refugees, not just asylum seekers, not just locals. Every person has this potential. It's just that the potential in refugees and asylum seekers is like no one thinks they have. Many people don't think they have potential, and that's where I feel like, okay, I can bring that out. I can highlight something that is already there.
That's wonderful. You sold me. I want to join one of those walks.
You guys have to come for a tour. You guys have to come for a tour. Please.
Yeah, definitely. You have my promise. I want to experience. It sounds super cool. And besides your social activities or being a bridge, you also continued your studies here in Switzerland, right?
Yes.
And as an introduction, you're doing your master right now. And from what I know, against many odds.
You do know.
Can you tell? Because that's also what struck me. Because I mean, the prejudice or prejudice would be like, okay, like in the refugee, like outside, like support system or so, like you're left without any real options, and like and what the motivation of this show is to also present that there are always possibilities and options, and that each one of us is very much the creator of our circumstances, even though we might perceive the circumstances as not really beneficial. So I'm really curious to hear the story, because that's so incredible and empowering too. How, like, from the little bit I know. So I would love to. I would love you if you want to share a bit about the circumstances to start that study. And
yes, I love how you phrase it. Thank you for phrasing it that way. That despite the circumstances, there's always chances. And And yes, and I want to say that everything I shared, it's really to tell people that there are possibilities, just what you were saying, that we have to be patient, that we have to persevere, that we have to be resilient, and to find these like treasures and gems that are hidden everywhere for us to just grow and move forward. um, as I shared before, I had one semester to go when I was in Colombia to finish my bachelor, 4.5 year bachelor of film. I couldn't finish there. I had to come here, and it's a super long story. How do I make it short? I had to finish my school from here. My thesis was in a hard drive, and this hard drive was taken by the migration authorities in the first shelter. So my thesis was gone pretty much. And I have gone to Cuba to film it. It was a great documentary. Yeah, anyway. So I lost it, and I was like, oh my God, I want to finish. Like, it's been 4 years of really studying very hard, and it would really hurt me if I'm the person who tells the story like, oh yeah, once I studied film, but I never finished it because, life. I had to come to Switzerland. I didn't want to have that story. I was like, no, this is not gonna happen. And so I started looking for opportunities to maybe do an internship, but it was always this. The rules for asylum seekers are always about prohibition. It's like, you cannot work, you cannot even do a volunteer work, you're not allowed to do that, you're not allowed to travel. It was always like, no, 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 no. And it was really frustrating, and I won't deny that many times I was just crying and being like, oh my God, like, what can I do here? Everything is no. Everywhere I go, everywhere I ask, from the legal point of view of my status, it's like, no, no, no. But I have to say, I was very sneaky. I was like, sorry, you don't tell me I cannot do a volunteer, but I see and I read, and I'm not forbidden for that. Even when your social worker tells you you're not allowed to do volunteer work, I was like, why? And then looking, and I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. So I found an internship, sort of, and I started working at a cinema club at the Technological Institute of Zurich, the ETH, federal, well, at a university in Zurich. And so I could just do a lot of research with them and run the cine club together. And so I could send that to Colombia. Anyway, I got my bachelor, I graduated 1 year after being in Switzerland, but thank God that happened. And then after that, I was already 1 year in Switzerland. I had my bachelor, and I didn't know what to do with my life. I was just making sense of everything. And one day I was so desperate to leave the shelter I was living in that I just typed on Google, room for refugee person in Zurich under 500 francs or something like that. And then the first thing that comes is access for refugees, a study at the Zurich University of the Arts. I'm like, what? Wait, is this Truman Show? It's someone like, is this a catch? What's the catch? This is too good. I opened it and I see that the Zurich University of the Arts has a program. I call, I get an interview with the person the day after. I tell them my story. I'm like, I just graduated. I have my bachelor in film. And they're like, this is a pilot program. Do you speak German? At the time, I think I had B1, and English I was more fluent. And they're like, okay, you can you take it. You for free. You pick any bachelor or master, and you take a trial semester. You don't get any credits, but you see how the university life in Switzerland actually is. And that shaped my life completely. That opportunity and that program, in so many ways, made me who I am today and gave me so much confidence to speak so boldly about so many things and to learn and just to develop. It was really, I'm so grateful for that. And I know that God wanted me there and put me there. And even if living in the refugee shelter was the price for me to come to Google and type that and get that, then so worth it. And so I took a semester there, and it was very challenging, very challenging. I didn't understand anything when it was in German. I was so lost, but I was very active, and it was like, wow, I feel like I'm myself again. I feel like a student. I feel like I'm learning. It was a great experience. And then after the trial semester was over, There was a new master's that was super expensive, around 30,000 francs, on art and society, and it sounded perfect for me. The teachers were like, "You're the perfect candidate for this master's," and I'm like, "I don't have any money as an asylum seeker. I cannot apply for any scholarships at all. It's like I have no money. Like I literally just have the money to survive every month. What happens?" And they're like, "Okay, we don't know. Just come in, take the courses, and start looking for scholarships." Amazing experience. These people, these teachers of these masters, they open everything, every possibility for me. I was desperately looking for scholarships, also very stressful for those of you who have looked for scholarships. Send so many letters, do so much, and it was always the same answer. Why does it have to be so expensive? You're an asylum seeker. You can leave Switzerland anytime. Why would we invest in someone who's about to leave? Like that was the bottom line. Of course, they didn't say that in my face.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, but I'm here, I'm looking, and the teachers were like super kind. And that was 1.5 years of my life, just looking for scholarships, trying to find stuff, not finding anything. And so the master, after 1.5 years, decided to close. It was an amazing program, but it was very expensive, and not many students wanted to be like in that master, just because it's very social. It's very like a lot of activism, a lot of human rights, and people in Switzerland in this school tend to go more into the design or filmmaking in another branch. And so they closed it, and I had this meeting with very important people from this university, the head of the continuing education, the dean of a program, the other dean, like 5 people were sitting in this room. They want to tell me that the master is closed. I'm just sitting there, I don't know what's going to happen. And they're like, "Natalia, I'm sorry, we have to close this program." And I was like, oh my God, I need to pay them. Like, what's going to happen now? I was so afraid. Like, how do I pay them back? And they're like, "But we know your situation. We've seen how much effort you've put into these. The students are also super grateful to have someone bringing such a perspective and experience. It's so valuable for them. They've never had that. So yes, the master is gonna close, and do you have any money or something?" I was like, "No." And then one of the teachers, it's like, "I'm gonna pay for that." And the other one is like, I pay for that class. I pay for those credits." And everyone is just like, I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, "Yes, we're gonna give you your certificate, don't worry." And they start signing stuff, and I'm just sitting there like, okay, God, this is a God-given moment. Like, I didn't come to this. I thought they were going to ask me for money. And just in a matter of 30 minutes, they give me my certificate of this Master of Advanced Studies. And I'm like, wow, this actually happened. Okay. And I'm like, wow, great, thank you. I'm super grateful for this chance. This was a year and a half ago. I'm like, this really shaped me. I've learned so much. I've gained so much confidence. I've met so many great people. Thank you so much. And they're like, "No, but you cannot leave this school. Like, what is there another master you would like to do?" And I have, the night before, I have checked 2 masters. And I'm like, "Well, yes, I checked this, the Master of Fine Arts and the Master in Transdisciplinary Studies." And they were like career coaches. Amazing. They're like, "Yeah, because of your profile, and you do a lot of activism, but you're also a filmmaker, and you're artsy, and this and that. We think that you should go to this program." And then the other person, "No, but you'll be better in this one." And I was like, what's going on? And they're like, "Yeah, you should go to the Master in Transdisciplinary Arts. It's in the arts, it's 2 years. It's just like 3,000 francs, the whole master's." And I have done a crowdfunding campaign maybe 2 months prior to try to cover this cost of this very expensive program in art and society. I was like, wait, I actually have 3,000 francs from the crowdfunding campaign that I just like finished a week ago. And they're like, "Oh, well, that's exactly the cost of the master's. You should do it, Natalia. We are gonna connect you with the dean of that master's." And I have to say, it's super difficult to get in this school. It's like, I know so many Swiss people who are like this, they put so many barriers for people to enter these programs, and you need to present a huge master project and stuff. I never did any of that. And I feel so bad sometimes. I'm like, what am I doing here? These people are so clever and they've put so much effort. But when God puts you somewhere, just take it, be grateful, don't question too much. And that's what happened. And I've been doing this second master in transdisciplinary studies for 1.5 years now. My master project is actually Power to the People. So the city works, which has been great, just have mentors and fellow students and teachers just like helping me out to figure out the project, to do research, to do prototyping. So one of the things I'm most grateful for in my life, it's having such great chances to educate myself and to share with people that otherwise I wouldn't have so many possibilities to be in an educational context with.
What an incredible and inspirational story. Thank you for sharing. And if you had to share or give advice to someone else who's listening to that, like, what do you think was or is your recipe for creating opportunities, even in the face of maybe very adverse or difficult situations?
I would say embrace your journey. Whatever that is, whatever you are, no matter the circumstances, you are there for a reason. You are there for a reason, and know that the place you are in right now, even if it's not the place you'd like to be or you dreamt of being in, it's the place where you're gonna get the tools, the learning, the polishment, whatever you need to get to the other place you want to be. So don't just put your attention on your goals and where you want to go or be or how you want to feel, but what I have now. So really connecting with the today, the now. These experiences are going to take me somewhere, and I need to get the best out of this. If it's learning to be more patient, I need to learn how to be more patient. And I think that really brings a lot of peace and a lot of relief. And once you know that what you're going through is super valuable, and God wants you there and has something for you there at that time, then you just see light. And then I hope you find the strength to start looking for things. Never give up, never take no for an answer, but not in the way that you're proud or arrogant, but more in the way that if you have an instinct and you feel that something inside of you is telling you to do that thing that seems crazy, go for it. Embrace that. It might seem crazy for everyone else, but if you have it inside of you, be true to that.
Thank you very much. It's amazing. And what I also can sense, like, that, I mean, like, and I would love to hear what you think about that. Like, if you put your heart into something, people recognize that and they want to support you with that. Like, that you like actually, that's something I've personally thought about. And so I'm like, I want to ask you this, like, when I look back how I was walking through the world, I had like this, whatever, projections towards others, like whatever, they are arrogant, they don't want to help, like I was optimizing for myself. But when you're authentic, when you share what's going on and even maybe the problems you're facing, and you're real, like, people tend to react very, very different, and they are actually very supportive, and people you perceived as maybe closed or not interested are actually very much interested if they have a chance to connect to you. Like, what would you like? What would you say about that? Like, does it make sense from your perspective, or?
Absolutely. I think first knowing that no one owns you anything, and that you're not granted of anything, and just starting like, it's not because I'm a refugee then, oh, Swiss people, they've had such great life and they haven't. Of course, everyone has their own journey. You're not entitled to anything. You just are grateful that if God gave you life and brought you to this world, then you have your own journey. That's something that has been very liberating, and that has helped me to connect with other people. Because this is a process. It's not that this person that you hear today was the same person that was 6 months ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago. I'm sure you've noticed that. I mean, we've talked in different periods of life, and I also see you as a completely different person now that you were 2 years ago when we spoke last time. Maybe. I believe that it brings you freedom to accept that no one owns you or has to give you anything, so that you can connect from a place of gratefulness, from a place of, okay, I'm here. And then if you can, being vulnerable, but also knowing that sometimes who are you being vulnerable with might not be the right person. This is something we all learn, to have this instinct, with whom do I share what I need to share, and what are my intentions. Because I remember a lot. I mean, my first year in this university, I wanted to participate a lot in the class. I was the one like getting up and talking a lot. But because I was so angry and so frustrated, and it didn't make sense to me that I was feeling that way, and the students sitting next to me were just at so much peace and relaxed and just could go home and watch TV or something, when I had to go back to a shelter. And so my intentions at the time were much like, if I talk or if I speak up, it's because I want them to feel guilty. You know, I mean, I didn't have this so clear, but now when I look back and I evaluate how I felt at the time, it felt very unjust. And so I would get up in the class and be like, yes, there's so many refugees right now in the shelter next door, and the universities are doing nothing, and bringing a lot of like guilt. And it was a moment I was going through. It's okay, people accept it. It's okay, fine. But just maybe asking yourself, what are my intentions? And maybe sometimes before being vulnerable, or before wanting to connect people to follow your project or to support your project on your journey, just ask yourself really, what are your intentions? Many times we have to heal so much. I'm always trying to heal so many things that happened 25 years ago. And just like heal, be at peace with that, examine it yourself, try to find where is this anger or this frustration or this want to share coming from. And then when you feel like you're confident with who you are, you're at peace, then be vulnerable. It's great. It connects you with people from a completely different level. And then people will see this authenticity, as you were saying. I think that it's the process I've been going through to get to the point where I feel very comfortable with speaking about the hardships, and also saying like, yeah, before I was mean, before I was not grateful, before I was greedy, and now I'm trying to work towards not being like that, being more humble, being more kind, and so on.
Thank you very much for sharing this. And I was mentioning it in the introduction. Your art is my last treasure. From the little bit I read, like, was it also a way of dealing or processing the situation you're in? And from what I understand, obviously you probably have not been back to Colombia since you left, right? So, and I don't know, is there a possibility for you to go back to Colombia at some time, or how is that situation?
That's right. I haven't been to Colombia since I left. We have just received a Swiss residency, and that means that from now on, we are not allowed to go back to Colombia for 12 years. That's the catch. That's the catch when you're a refugee. We give you the residence, but you're not allowed to go back. Yes, and towards my last treasure, this digital collage I realized for Art Basel and the United Nations Agency for Refugees last summer. If we could maybe link it to the podcast so people can see the
Yes, absolutely, yes.
graphic. It's just very, but I try to explain it is a collage in which I show some of my most precious objects that I could bring from Colombia with me. One, it's a picture of my brother and I when we were 5, and the first time we saw the sea, the ocean. The other one is a necklace that I was given when I was very young by someone I really loved. The other object is a page of my diary in which I wrote my dreams 2 days before coming to Switzerland. A leaf from a tree I collected somewhere, I don't remember where, and this is all put in an artwork where I write what's written. Okay. I forgot, but there is this phrase, even when remembering. Okay, yes. So the artwork says, even when remembering hurts, I refuse to forget. I did not leave my life behind. I brought it with me in pieces. My last treasures. What was the question?
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, I mean, from what you shared before, I imagine that also art, or maybe also this art piece, was a way of dealing with the situation of being here, like as you just said, not having the possibility for some time to go back to Colombia.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's another tool that I'm so grateful for. This art, this way of communicating, of translating feelings, frustrations, emotions, hope into either a collage or the postcards or a movie or a film or whatever I do, that just translates what I'm going through. And I think it's very magical because I might not be the best. Like, that was the first poster I did in my life. So probably if a designer sees it, it's like, oh yeah, but this is not in the right angle, or the composition or whatever, or the films I do are very rough, very raw. I'm not good at technical stuff. But when you do something from the heart and when you're so vulnerable, people connect to it, and it's a layer beyond aesthetics. And it's a layer of, and it was so beautiful to have this poster seen by people in person in the streets, and in this event by the UN and Art Basel, but also sending it to friends, to my dad, to people, to other refugees, and seeing like, they could see something, they could connect to it, everyone in their own different ways of connecting. But that's why I think art can be so powerful when it comes from your heart, and it's not about how good it looks or how much acquainted to the trend, the art trend at the moment is, but how you can bring that out and pour your soul and your fears and your wishes into something else, into something new.
Interesting. Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, you can feel it. And we will put all the information to the show notes so that people can look at that and also find out more about you. Last but not least, like, what would be a recommendation or an advice for someone who finds themselves in a situation where like the perception is there are no possibilities, I'm stuck here in whatever, like mental prison of doubts, fear. Is there something you would have for them as an advice or recommendation?
I would say that you're not alone, and that you were really made with such great purpose and such great destiny. And your circumstances might have brought you to the point where you feel in a mental prison, and it seems like you can't look farther than a few centimeters outside of your mind. But I would like to remind you that there is a God, and there is a creator, and there is something way bigger than you and way bigger than our circumstances, our fears, our mind chattering. There is something greater than that. There is someone greater than that. And try to put your attention in that, and wish and pray for light, for hope, because it's in there. The fact that we are not experiencing it at certain points in life doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's always there. There is light, there is purpose, there is love, remember that there is a God greater than us that has the best for us. And I really hope that everyone who listens to this might have found a bit of inspiration or hope or light from the experiences Simone and I have been through.
What wonderful words to close. Is there something else you want to share? What, like, something you're working on, or projects or experiences you want to share or invite people to check out?
Just to people that if you want to email me, if you want to contact me, if you want to talk, ask questions, I'm here for that. Apart from the projects or being active and doing things, which is something great, I also like connecting with people from different countries, backgrounds, ideas, religions, perceptions, and just that I'm here. If you ever need a prayer, if you ever need an advice, if you ever need to talk to someone, just feel free to contact me, and I'll be more than glad and honored to hear from you.
Dear Natalia, it has been incredible. I love what you're doing, and I'm completely, I'm supporting and completely up for supporting your commitment and bringing light and creating a more inclusive world. And of course, in the show notes of this episode, we will add resources where everybody can follow you, where you check out your art, your projects. And to you, dear listener, if you like what you've heard, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and also check out Natalia's work and share the information with your friends to make a difference together. And I'm thanking you again, Natalia, for taking the time to be here and sharing your experience, your expertise, your wisdom, your inspiration. And with Beyond Perception, it's all about empowering people to live self-determined, free and healthy lives. And it's a true honor to travel on this journey together.
Likewise, Simon, such an honor, and I'm also very inspired by your journey, by Brenda's journey. I love you guys so much, and it's like a dream to be able to speak with you so openly and to also hear your experiences. And I admire you greatly, and I admire this initiative of the podcast you're doing, and people listen, follow, and hope we can all connect and really inspire each other.
Nothing to add. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.